So in the company, the best way for the companies to enhance creative thinking of the employees is to indirectly create a creative thinking enabled environment rather than a direct training method. Okay, there are a lot of different ways to foster creative thinking in the company, but according to the Tina Selig, the best way for companies to enhance the creative thinking is not through the direct training, but through indirectly providing an environment for creative thinkings. So what are the critical elements of the environment for creative thinking? Fostering indirectly the creative thinking environment. There are a couple of them. First, motivation to arouse the people's interest or intellectual curiosity. Okay, so instead of just providing one straight line for success to achieve the targets, so the companies may provide a lot of motivations, and then peoples will choose the best way to achieve the targets, leveraging their personal interest or intellectual curiosities. And then the company has to wait. The company should have some patience to wait for the result in the midst of the uncertainty and ambiguities. So it's the totally different paradigm of old economies. So in the new economy, you should have the patience to wait for the results in the midst of the uncertainty and ambiguity. During the classes of my lecture of building the business strategy, so I brought an example of the richest person in Korea, who is the founder of the Kakao. Kakao is the online platform for the communication through the social networking service provider, sending the short messages free of charge. And then a couple of years ago, I had a chance to do some of the consulting works for the companies. So once in 2 weeks, I had a chance to meet the founder of the Kakao, whose name is Brian. And actually the purpose of the consulting the service was how to foster the corporate culture inside the Kakao for the horizontal discussion cultures. The founder of the Kakao, the Brian, used to be one of the co-founders of the Naver. Naver is also the unicorn startups, and their main business is the search engine of the best search engine in South Korea. It's very similar to the search engine of the Googles. So Naver could be the Google of Google in South Korea. And Brian, the co-founder of the Naver, left the company because he felt the corporate culture is not fostering the horizontal discussion among the employees. So when he founded a new startup, Kakao, he thought the most important thing is having a very unique corporate culture of the horizontal discussion cultures. And then why did he focus on developing and fostering such horizontal discussion culture? Because he thought that's the best way to for the creating for building for making the creative thinking environment. So, and also he had a patience to wait for the result in the middle of the uncertainty and ambiguities. In Kakao, there is no the working hours, the starting deadline of the working hours. In most Korean companies, they come to the office by 8 or by 9 early in the morning, and they finish their work by 6 or at 7 in the evening. But in Kakao, they don't care, they don't monitor the when they are employees coming to the office at all, and then when they leave the offices at all. So it's up to the employees who will decide when they come to the office and when they leave the offices. And that may bring a lot of moral hazard among the employees, and then they would bring a lot of uncertainties and ambiguities. But Brian, the founder of the company, had sufficient patience to wait for the results in the middle of such uncertainties and ambiguities. And finally, in less than 15 years, the Kakao became one of the expensive companies in terms of the market, one of as the size of the markets in Korea, and the founder became the richest person in Korean business world. Okay, and for creating the environment for the creative thinking and encouraging and supporting for the failure is also very important. So as I have mentioned a couple of times, failure is inevitable in the new economy where there are a lot of uncertainties. So instead of trying the best to avoid the failures, let's face the failures. The first thing of facing the failure is that make a small failure instead of the big failures once the failure is inevitable. And then the second thing is that try to maximize the learnings from the failures. Okay, failure is given, and then what we can do is that getting a lot of learnings from such failures. And number third, that's the most important thing, is that recovering from such failures and then trying once again. So that should be the attitude we have toward the failures. So one of the ways for the companies to foster the environment for the creative thinking is encouraging and also supporting for failures, and give a lot of time, enough time for the employees to think about. So by implementing those measures, the companies may provide the creative thinking enabled environment, and which might be more effective in fostering and building the capabilities of creative thinking, instead of providing the direct training about creativities. Okay, the second element of the capabilities, which is essential in the fourth industrial revolution, is that strategic thinking. And when I say the strategic thinking, and that includes both problem definition and solving capabilities. According to the Albert Einstein, a genius physicist, scientist of in our entire history, and Albert Einstein once said that if I were given an hour, I would spend 55 minutes defining what the problem is and the remaining 5 minutes finding solutions. Strategic thinking was a topic we have already covered throughout the entire classes of building the business strategies. So basically, if you remember, the first class was about strategic thinking and intuitive thinking. And strategic thinking has a lot of different important elements. Curiosity and information gathering tendency might be one of the elements of the strategic thinking, and disaggregating the big and sophisticated problems into simple, small issues. That's also one of the elements of the strategic thinking. And another element of the strategic thinking is synthesizing, putting together all the findings to draw the final conclusion. And the final element of the strategic thinking is the leaderships, or thinking about the futures. Those are also the part of the strategic thinking. And strategic thinking is a different concept from the intuitive thinkings. In strategic thinking, we use the logical way in presenting a lot of different options and collecting the objective data to draw the conclusions. So strategic thinkers do not answer very quickly to any questions given to them. Intuitive thinkers may leverage all his expertise and also the knowledges through the secondary informations in making the decisions. Either ways are good to find good solutions. But just because we are living in a more uncertain environment and a lot of problems are very sophisticated, it's not enough to rely on our previous knowledges or experiences. So there are a lot of sophisticated problems which we cannot solve leveraging our knowledges and experiences. We have to rely on strategic thinkings. So that's why we emphasize the strategic thinking and try to learn about how to become, how to think like a strategic thinkers. And in my second class of today, of the entire lecture series of building business strategy, I also introduced the 7-step problem solving of developed by the McKinsey & Company. And once the problem is given, the first and most important step we have to tackle is defining the problems. If we make mistakes in defining the problems, and then even though we do our best in solving a lot of efforts in solving the problems, the answer might not be the right answers. So we have to spend a lot of time and energy upfront to define the problems properly. So it's in line with Albert Einstein's comments. So defining the problem is the more important than solving the capabilities. Okay, so the first element is about some creative thinking, and second element is about logical thinking, strategic thinking. So if you mastered a lot of key concepts and then exercise exercise of the thinking strategically in solving various problems around yourself, you can improve actually the strategic thinking capabilities, which might be one of the core capabilities required in the fourth industrial revolutions.